If having both highways 63 and 54 closed were not inconvenience enough for residents north of the river, some customers also lost natural gas service for nearly a month. Crews from Union Electric spent the morning in knee-deep water in the mill bottom trying to keep pressure in the gas line that runs beneath the river. It didn't work.
Well, about 1,500 customers have lost service in the communities of Ashland, Hartsburg, New Bloomfield, and Holt Summit.
Crews spent several days constructing a pipeline the length of the Missouri River Bridge, thus bypassing the pipeline under the river. Meantime, in Columbia, the concern was for the city's water supply. For several weeks, floodwaters edged closer to a sandbag wall constructed around the city's water purification plant located near the Missouri River at McBain.
The flood of '93 touched many Midwesterners. In Missouri, from Kansas City to St. Louis, from Canton to Cape Girardeau, hundreds of Missouri cities and towns found themselves underwater.
Morrison residents battled it out with Mother Nature and lost. Cliff Rost worked for what used to be Morrison Lumber. The store is now 8 to 10 feet underwater. The levees held up. The water just rose above them. So quickly, in fact, that residents had little or no time to pack up their belongings. They could just watch and pray as floodwaters turned city streets into canals and homes into swimming pools.
Derek Hauser took this home video Thursday afternoon as plastic toy parts came floating out of Stevens Manufacturing Company. 5 open loading docks of the toy company are in water up to the door, with toys floating out. About 200 people work at the plant, which makes and sells toys to retailers.
Well, my wife's out of a job for a while anyway, until they relocate or get something set up. It was unreal, the water pouring out of this building here.
Got about an 8-foot flood wall that runs around the building. They were sandbagging it, and they were bracing up the flood wall, and part of it cracked, and water just started gushing in.
When the flood wall caved in, 8 feet of water came crashing down on this toy factory. Company officials aren't sure how much they've lost in a dollar amount, but they're pretty sure they lost almost everything. Other businesses in downtown Herman are also victims of the flood. Jay's grocery store is filled with flood water and snakes. Employees are patrolling the supermarket to keep looters out.
The main levee on the Missouri River near Hartsburg is the town's only hope. That is why residents continued sandbagging today. One levee has broken, another overtopped by the river. And if this one doesn't hold out, 3 to 4 feet of water could come to this part of town.
That is our only hope. We need that big levee to stay in place and the river to go down. So, because that big levee in '73, when it came out, it washed an awful big hole in there, and we had a lot of work to get it put back together. So,
in the face of potential disaster, everyone is trying to help.
Mostly, I've been moving sandbags. We've got quite a few volunteers that came up with this. It's getting difficult to get volunteers up there because the only way you get them up there is a boat.
It's the only way anyone can get around here. At 6:30 this morning, Mel Reifsteck and her family watched the water make its way into their mobile home. She knew they would have to get out.
You work all your life for this, and then this happens. There's nothing else I can really put it. I mean, everybody has tried their hardest and everything, but it's not only me, it's everybody else. It just devastates you.
This town of more than 100 people has watched the population shrink to about 50 residents the past 2 weeks. Now all the rest of them can do is sit and wait.
I hope it don't get in my house, but it never has, but it could. So I won't be leaving town.
You're going to stay?
I'm going to stay.
Unless you live in Hartsburg, you won't get far into town. A roadblock has been set up here about 1/8 of a mile from Hartsburg's limits, all in an effort to keep sightseers out of the way as this town prepares for the worst. In Hartsburg, Julie Geyer, News Scene 13.
The flooding here in Bonnet's Mill is putting quite a strain on residents. Jack Fork owns what used to be Crazy Horse Saloon. He's been so worried about the flood damage and loss of revenue, he had to be checked into a hospital.
But this was a little more than we can stand. I mean, I've been cut off 6 times now in the last 6 months, but it's the first time it's been in the building.
Bonnet's Mill sits along the Osage River, and the entire town is on the National Registry of Historic Places. Most of these buildings have withstood the test of time, but time isn't the only element testing them these days. So is Mother Nature.
Right now the floors are buckling, and I've got to keep them nailed down. If it don't get a whole lot higher to where it actually gets up on the flooring and stuff, we can keep this building just the way we want it kept.
The flooding that you're looking at stems from problems along the Missouri River. But residents in Bonnet's Mill could get a double whammy. Officials at Bagnell Dam are expecting to open up the floodgates, which would send millions of gallons of additional water into the already flooded Osage.
People in Rocheport lost 2 sandbag levees about 4 o'clock this morning. Volunteers were literally up to their necks in water trying to save nearly 20 homes. Members of the Langdon family have lived in this house for nearly 40 years. Floodwaters have turned this home into an island surrounded by sandbags.
Still got the house. I don't know how deep it's getting or anything because I haven't been in.
Are you scared?
Oh, yeah.
Several other Rocheport homes are in critical condition. Sandbags are starting to weaken as the water continues to rise.
Just a lot of pressure against it, and these bags have been in the water for a long time, and so their integrity is starting to collapse on us a little bit. But keep trying. As long as people keep coming to help us, we're going to hang in here.
Shovel after shovel, sandbag after sandbag, pile after pile. Volunteers here in Rocheport are doing all they can to save this tiny river community. But the question still remains, who will win this battle? The people or the river?
We are, of course. Is there any doubt?
Volunteers are optimistic their efforts will pay off.
So much effort and good-hearted people.
See, this is our country at its best.
CBS This Morning broadcasted live from Rocheport while interviewing Ross Perot. CBS anchorman Harry Smith says the flood of '93 is the worst catastrophe he's ever covered.
I stopped crying a couple of days ago. I just, you get all filled up and it's really inspirational.
Nearly 200 volunteers sandbagged in Rocheport, but more help is needed in Boone County.
Near Glasgow, a railroad bridge collapsed. 2 spans of the bridge gave way due to the pressures from the floodwaters. No traffic had been running on that bridge for several weeks.
If you think walking through floodwater is tough, try it while harnessing cattle. This animal resisted, but volunteers from Osage City put up a good effort to get 2 calves out of harm's way.
They were spooked by the water, and we couldn't move very fast, and it's just very limited what we could do, except that we had to get them rounded up and get them out because they was up to their bellies in the water.
Residents in the town of 40 were asked to evacuate early today after a 3rd break occurred on a nearby levee. Most stayed here and joined with others from mid-Missouri to sandbag. At times, plastic was in short supply, slowing down the task, but it did not dampen their spirits.
I helped sandbag out on the west end of Just City last night, so I'm just kind of in the mood right now.
Ernest Rosger grew up in this home on Grand Avenue, now owned by his brother-in-law and surrounded by almost a foot of water. Ernest believes this disaster is teaching people what being a neighbor is all about.
It used to be this way years ago, and then it drifted away. You didn't even know your neighbor. When a disaster like this hits, they all get together, and it's a wonderful thing.
It was way back in the late 1920s when people first started coming to Osage City to help build a railroad here along the Osage River. Today, many of their descendants and even people who don't live here are now doing everything they can to keep this town from going underwater. In Osage City, Julie Geyer, News Scene 13.